Chairman of the M&A Council of Aserjan, its members, organizers, my professional colleague, Mr. on the dais, and ladies and gentlemen in the audience. Very good afternoon to all of you, and I must thank the organizers for inviting me here. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. I'm aware of the fact that there has been some time overrun and we are running late. I'm also mindful of the fact that it is only speakers of this session who are standing between you and lunch. So I'll try to keep my presentation short and simple. What am I going to talk about? Now, the brief given to us by the organizers has been very clear that we should be focusing on the practical issues in domestic acquisitions, the hurdles faced, and the strategies followed. So accordingly, I'll be talking about the acquisition drivers, the pitfalls, the practical issues before an M&A, and the challenges in preserving value in an M&A. Well, the intention of this slide is not to confuse you. It's just to set the scene. The only point I want to drive home here is domestic acquisitions do account for a significant portion of the M&A activity in India. And if you look at most of the deal parameters, like the average deal size or the aggregate value of deals, then over a period of time, these parameters are showing a healthy upward trend, except maybe for the blip in 2007-2008. Okay, when we talk about value creation, what do we really mean? Value has different connotations. It would mean different things to different people. So in an M&A context, it could mean savings through synergies and economies of scale. It could mean access to new markets, new technology, new customers. It could also be a tool to limit competition or to increase market share. A couple of years back, Sodexo acquired Radhakrishna Hospitality Services. Radhakrishna Hospitality Services was the #1 in catering business in India. Sodexo, a global player, but it was a distant #2. With this acquisition, Sodexo was able to consolidate its position, gain access to a large number of new customers, and equally importantly, Radhakrishna Hospitality was being eyed by some international players to mark their entry into India. So with this acquisition, Sodexo was able to effectively thwart that competition. Saint-Gobain has its manufacturing facilities in Chennai, whereas Sejal Glass has its manufacturing facility at Gujarat. So with this acquisition, Saint-Gobain was able to get market share in the western part of the country. And had it not been for this acquisition, Sejal Glass would have been gobbled up by some of the competition. So with this, they were able to increase their market share as well as thwart competition. Having said this, generally it would be companies who have deep pockets and who are at the mature stage of business. They would be looking at M&A as a tool to increase their market share or to limit competition. Now in this context, or in this example, Saint-Gobain has a long history, about 1200 years history of glass making. As an international company, they have deep pockets. Whereas if you look at Sejal Glass, glass making is a capital intensive industry. And one of the factors ailing this company was that it had run up a huge debt and the debt costs were killing it. So it was almost on the verge of becoming an NPA. So with this acquisition, Saint-Gobain, with its deep pockets, it could immediately pay off the debt post a transaction. So the point I'm trying to make is, while it's nice to use M&A as a tool to thwart competition or to increase market share, generally this would be something for companies who have deep pockets. So the long and short of it is, today with increasing globalization, advancing technology, M&A is a preferred route by companies to meet their growth aspirations. I just wanted to run you through some of the practical issues, the typical deal issues which should be considered before an M&A. Managing valuation expectation. That could be a challenge. Especially most of you may have heard about the recent transaction where Paris Pharma was acquired by Reckitt Benckiser. The valuations were fantastic. Paris Pharma got something like 30.9 times its EBITDA, 8 times its revenue number as a valuation for this deal. As a result, what we have been observing is the expectations of the owners are rising too. unrealistic level. So that could be a challenge. Second is key customer retention. In quite a few instances, these key customer relationships are very individualistic. They're significantly dependent on the owners. So retaining these customers post a transaction is a challenge. If it's a manufacturing company, then labor issues and environmental compliances would be a significant factor. It's important that you manage the trade unions, any resistance from the trade unions proactively. Likewise, if there are any significant non-compliance on the environmental side, these need to be factored in. Significant related party transactions, they can increase the deal risk. The challenge here is to ascertain the standalone cost post the transaction. What will happen once the transaction is done and these related party transactions are not going to happen? So those adjustments will have to be made in the valuation model. Now, most of the mid-sized and small companies may not have robust internal controls. They may not have adequate management information system. So ascertaining the true profitability of that company may be a challenge. So these things will have to be factored in. Again, integration issues. Now, most of the times, integration issues get pushed to the post-deal stage. But if a merger has to be successful, it's important that the integration issues are assessed and dealt with at the pre-deal stage itself. Last two are topical things. I thought I should just be talking about them. As you would be aware, under the Competition Act, the regulation of combination has been notified with effect from 1st June. Now, this is an unknown animal. We don't know how things will shape up. Again, the new takeover regulations have been announced last week. Of course, Nischal would be the right person to talk about them in detail. But just the 2 or 3 things there which I thought I should just talk about. One is that the threshold, the initial threshold for the trigger has been increased from 15% to 25%, and the offer size has been increased from 20 to 26%. And the third point is non-compete. So non-compete fees have been done away with.